This represents the extent of the Spanish Empire at the beginning of the 20th century, and the story I'm about to tell you happened in the mountains of Rif, in the north of Morocco. Our hero is Muhammad ibn Abdelkarim al-Khattabi, and he always had a message to convey. So he naturally worked as a teacher, translator, and then as a journalist for a Spanish newspaper. 4 years later, he was featured in the Time magazine, and little did that have to do with journalism. In 1921, General Sylvester, the most renowned Spanish general at the time, was leading an army of 20,000 highly trained and equipped soldiers towards the great mountains of the Rif. He stopped course for a short while to read a message from our brave hero. If you cross the Emekran River, we would consider it an act of war. The general laughed at the message, since it came from people 10 times outnumbered with little weaponry and no warfare experience. But the people of the Rif won the battle with 2,000 men, and the Spanish suffered heavy losses and were in great shock. Was it luck? That possibility was dismissed very quickly when he liberated vast territories from Spanish and French occupation. And it took the Spanish and French empires a combined army of 250,000 soldiers, supported by aircraft and heavy artillery, to win a fierce battle that lasted 10 months. A battle that could have had a different result had the invaders not used chemical weapons to bomb civilians and military alike. What was the secret behind these achievements? Fate? The drive for freedom? Yes, but technically, what was it that made this possible? It was a paradigm shift that made the opponent numbers, equipments, and experience insignificant. And that is guerrilla warfare, which directly influenced Che Guevara, Mao Zedong, and other liberation movements around the world. After the battle, Muhammad ibn Abdelkarim al-Khattabi was exiled and lived the rest of his life rooting for freedom, peace, and hope for all mankind. My name is Abdullah, and I will be talking about Imba, a programming language for the web, and why I consider it a paradigm shift in web development. But first, a little bit about me. I'm a software engineer from Morocco. I work as a full-stack engineer at Scrimba. I created TS2Imba, a tool that translates TSX, including React tags, to Imba. We'll be using it in the demos, so stay tuned. And I also created the Imba Vite plugin. Let's look at some paradigm shifts in software. When writing C code, the developer needs to allocate memory for variables, free it, and pay attention to potential memory leaks. That model of writing software clearly values hardware space over developer mental space. And that's why the industry shifted to automatic memory management for building most apps. Another example is ORMs. They free developer mental space so that he doesn't have to learn SQL, joins, and database tuning, and whatnot. For both these technological advances, the trade-off is less performance in exchange for developer productivity, of course while staying fast enough. Imba frees developer mental space from two things: state management and context switching. Tags and styles are first-class citizens of the language. And there is no trade-off. Imba is an order of magnitude better than the current frameworks and libraries. It's shorter, simpler, faster, and more powerful. And thus it enables a single programmer using Imba to deliver as much value as a small team using many distinct technologies. And I'll be backing this statement in this talk. Code that we write serves as a description of our intent to humans and computers. Well, React nailed it by adopting a declarative way to describe components. Let's see if we can do better. As engineers, we need a measurable indicator for us to evaluate the technology. And I suggest signal versus noise ratio. So ideally, we want to have no noise in our code. So let's try to identify noise in this piece of code. Function. So we're describing a component. Why do we need to call it a function? Use state. Isn't variable declaration a construct of the language that represents state? Why a new concept? Setters? Assignment is a native construct. Well, there are other aspects of noise that are specific to the language itself. So if you look at the file, the end of the file, you're going to notice 3 lines of code, because this is a small component. In bigger components, you can have 50, 60 lines of code that are pure closing tags and brackets. And that's a bit noisy. Yeah. So let's do a demo. Let's remove noise from that component using Imba. Okay, so here's the code for our component. I'm going to head over to ts2imba.com and I'm going to pass in the code. It's going to give us some Imba code here. Let's take it to our code editor. Okay, so I'm going to rename it demo1 so it works in my little app that I have here. Yep, so use state. Let's replace that with the assignment. So let value equals 0, and then same things for name. Name equals ViteConf. So we can remove this. Okay, handler click. No need for these handlers. So I'm gonna take the change event handler. It's this is the syntax for it in Imba. No, let's not do that. Let's bind the name variable to the value of the input. And then let's change the click handler to, we're just incrementing, we're going to do it in line, to value ++. And let's do some cleanup here. Okay, that's how we do interpolation. And let's do the same here. Okay. Let's close the other tabs and open a browser. Let's see. Okay. Good. So this is our little, we can remove that as complaining about an export. Yeah, as you see, like it works, and no need for use state or any of the other things. We have two-way data binding. We can opt out of it if we don't want. And yeah, so it works fine. It's very nice, very clean, almost no noise. As you see, like this self tag, a bit of noise, but it's because Imba compiles to web components and it's needed. So by default, this is what it actually means. So that this tag it extends from the div element, and self is a reference to the div. So if we had a button or something, as you see now it's a button, but not very nice. But you can see the point. Yeah, so we went down from 23 lines of code to 8 lines of code. 7 lines of code. So it's more than 3 times less. And it's simpler as well. It's not just counting number of lines and characters. A minimalist living room looks good in Instagram. Anyone living there? Got any children? What we market to you as minimalism is in reality throwing the responsibility at you. Go bring your furniture. Unless you have great taste or bring in an interior designer, your chances of making a mess increase with every piece of furniture you bring. Backbone was very optimistic. It aspired to tackle all aspects of the front end. The model was responsible for communicating and syncing with the server using REST. And AngularJS decided that models would be left to the developer, only focused on syncing data to templates using scope. React decided to focus only on the view, but by doing that, it introduced two new concerns every React team needs to think about, plan, and deal with day to day: CSS in JS and state management. So focusing only on the view was nice in paper, but React developers soon came across limitations of this design decision. This led to the proliferation of CSS in JS libraries. Good for innovation, right? Well, yeah, but this had a cost: decision fatigue, as every team that's getting started needed to make a decision upfront. And some of these solutions had runtime and bundle cost, making your app slower and bigger in size. And more importantly, you needed to learn a new library to style your components. Well, not all CSS libraries had runtime cost. So utility frameworks allow you to write a variant of CSS as a class in your HTML. Well, this approach is very clean and has minimal noise, although the syntax highlighting signal is lost. Tailwind took utility-first CSS framework mainstream, and along with Windy CSS and other libraries, are constantly pushing this pattern forward. Unfortunately, this pattern is reaching its limit. That's because of the constraint of expressiveness within a string. And that's leading to less readable syntax for more complex operation. Not to mention some drawbacks like style reuse, which has a solution, but it's less than ideal. Demo time again. Let's look at how Imba handles styling. Yep, this is the code for demo 2, and let's go to TS2 Imba again. Let's transform this to Imba. Okay. We can remove this. Okay, so what you see here between brackets is the way we define inline styles in Imba. And let's look at them in the browser. 5473. No. Yep. So much better now. Yeah, so this is W, it stands for width. And VS Code extension is going to tell you, well, it's too long for me. It should be W, but it works with width too. And those short abbreviations, they are very similar to Tailwind. This is very much inspired by that, but it is much more flexible. So let's try to make this width. We can do 45%. Let's remove this. Works the same, but let's add a width variable here, and let's give it 44. And it's the same code. And we can do and let's bind this to it. Cool. So as you see, this is how we do dynamic styles. And by the way, this compiles to classes, not inline styles. Let's duplicate this a couple of times and looking for Ember 5. Okay, Ember 4 is better. And let's have some margin at the bottom. Okay, cool. Okay, it's working, but we don't want to be copy pasting stuff like that. We need to reuse this piece of code. So what we can do is we can come here and define a CSS class called slider. Just put in everything here. Slider. Skip the color because it's going to be different. Slider, and background color, was it green 4? Yep. And as you see, we can reuse dynamic styles without much fuss. It's much more readable. And okay, let's go fancy. Let's see the capabilities of this stuff. So what we want to do is we want to define a CSS variable called WD, and let's just give it width. Okay, and we can come here and say WD. Didn't work because of this. Now it's working. It's working with CSS variable. So another thing that we can do is we can reference CSS variable because, why not? Let's have a margin for test. This is, let's have a margin that's equal to, what do we name it? WD. Let's test it. It shouldn't be working. Yes, it's initially 45. Okay. But as you see, when I change the slider, the range, everything changes, even though this class was defined here. So this is very, very nice in practice. It enables you to have some very nice readable patterns in your code. State management is the biggest factor that contributes to making front-end apps complex these days. The main goal is to share state between components who aren't in the same tree. So Redux is the most well-known state management library, but it is a slightly complex. It has actions, reducers, action creators, stunks, selectors, immutability, dispatch, middleware, provider, and more. Whoa. Do I need to know about all this in order to share state between components? So there are other state management libraries out there, like MobX, Svelte, Context and Store, Vuex, etc. But they all introduce new concepts and APIs you need to learn. So the question is not how to do state management, but really how to not do it. Okay, another demo. Okay, let's go to demo 3 and let's start from, oh yeah, by the way, this is coming from Redux documentation, and this is a counter code. Let's copy it. This is the minimal real world example. Let's try to make it into Imba. So I'm gonna copy this stuff and take it to VS Code demo 3. Let's move that here. Okay, let's remove all this stuff. And as always, let's remove more noise, const. When I reuse this, I'm going to put it in a state. Here, okay, now let's increment. So states.count ++ count. Let's decrement this, and here it's going to be states.count, and we can get rid of this as well. Go to this, like it doesn't work because we did not. Okay, I need to change this to click. Cool. That's nice, but it doesn't solve our problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, let's create a demos state.imba. It's an Imba file. It's good. Complain about it not existing. Good. Works. That's nice. Let's go now to demo. Okay, let's go to demo 1. Let's break it. Import states from and now let's make it state.value. Let's see. Okay. Was it count? State.count. Okay. Demo 3, let's see. Okay, 0 again. Let's go back here. Oh, it's 4. It's working. And boom, like we took what is basically 40 lines of code, and I did not include the reducers. And we transformed it to 6 lines of code or something. So it's like more than 7 times less code. Less complexity, less code to maintain, less bugs, and it's clean and nice. Yeah, this is innovation by elimination for you. Rich Harris wrote a blog post about the virtual DOM being pure overhead. One of React's core team members said that the DOM is slow, back in 2013. And Rich got him on that. Well, saying that the DOM is slow is a wrong statement, unless you re-render it on every state change. Well, sorry to correct you here, Rich. Even that is wrong, since that's what Imba does. Imba does not have a virtual DOM, nor does it use reactivity to track state changes. Imba uses a unique concept called the Memoized DOM that enables it to be fast, so fast it does actually re-render every state change. This is not to say Imba is better than X, it's rather a call for other technologies to embrace the DOM. It's extremely fast. This is our final demo. Let's go to demo 4 and let's see what we've got. Okay, we have 3 items here, different color. This is all the style in here. We want to add some drag and drop functionality. So what do? So we go here, in Imba we have really nice event handlers. For example, we have a touch event handler, and you can modify it. In event modifiers, you would know them if you come from Svelte or Vue. So we can sync them with prop pose equals. We can sync them with the pause, and we can pause.x, y, pause.y. Okay, and they are draggable. How nice is that? Even works in mobile. So it's a very nice API. So what we can do, sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes you want to click on this, but you end up dragging the components. So we can chain another modifier. This one is called moved. some documentation here. So we can define a threshold. So we can say you start moving it when the user drags it by more than 10 pixels. So as you see, like, it's not moving at first, but then it's moving. And we can do more things like log to debug or something. No console here, right? Do have console. As you see, like, it's logging here. So this is a very nice code, and this is some comparable code in using React Draggable library. And as you see, it's much shorter, like 3 times shorter, and here it's using a library. And in Imba, like, it's so much more powerful because this is very flexible. We're set out to create not only the best programming language for the web, but unforgettable experiences for developers and end users. How? By bringing the best innovations in software together in a cohesive way and removing the noise from both your project and mind. Everyone should be able to turn code into a wow and create truly delightful moments with the best Imba we've ever made. Of course it has SSR, autoloading, built-in tags and styles, TSX compiler, no state management. But for the first time ever, custom modifiers add more thoughts to your cuisine, giving you more with less, more expressiveness, more power made effortless. It makes building the best apps easy peasy. The new Imba is cleaner, concise, more powerful, and it's faster. It has optional types, VS Code and Vite plugins.
Okay, our habit adder is looking really nice now.
A course that you can pose, play with, and play.
Let's make some other improvements to the app to make it look even nicer.
And the best part is a warm and welcoming community, just like you. Thank you.